Today, we're going to do something that I've been promising for a really long time. I'm going to bust out my set of Faber-Castell Polychromos colored pencils. And I have no idea what I'm doing, so stick around. Hey there, everyone. As many of you know, I primarily use a combination of Prismacolor Premier and Crayola Student Grade colored pencils, both wax pencils. So when it comes to using an oil-based pencil, such as these Faber-Castell Polychromos, I find them a bit difficult to work with. Not bad or anything, but just different. And every so often I tell myself, I'm going to use my Faber-Castells one of these days, I need to practice, and then I never ever do. Well, today, I'm doing it. Now, the first thing that always strikes me about these pencils is how pretty the wrapped shaft of the pencils are. They're just absolutely gorgeous visual candy. They're like shiny Skittles or jelly beans. I just love the way that these look. And now I just have the 60 pencil set. I know that they come in larger sets, so I can't even imagine the colors that I am missing out on. Now, the other thing that I have is a Faber-Castell color chart that I downloaded a long time ago and printed blank from the internet and then filled in myself. And this gives me a nice little cheat sheet for the actual colors that these little beauties are going to produce once on paper. Now, as my first Faber-Castell practice page in a really long time, I want to do a page from Mythomorphia. Namely this Medusa page. It's actually one of my favorites from this book, so I'm kind of hoping that I don't mess it up. Now, my absolute favorite colors from this set are these kind of salmon-y pinks and this range of blues right here. So I might as well use my favorite colors on this page, right? Now, as a reference for you guys, here's all the colors that I'm going to be using today, and I will call them out with some text on the screen as I go. I'll be using Madder, Medium Flesh, Venetian Red, Pompeian Red, Middle Purple Pink, Magenta, Cobalt Green, Cobalt Blue, Prussian Blue, Dark Indigo, Black, Cream, and Dark Naples Ochre. Starting off, I think I'll do the snake bellies in some light pinks and fuchsias, as I love highlighting these open, kind of flat, like unadorned sections that the artist has given us in light colors, which kind of leaves us open to color the backs or the bodies of the snakes later in something darker. And again, on these bellies, I want there to be a nice bright highlight across the front where I think that the light would sort of be shining or like bouncing off of. So I'm going to leave that kind of area white for now. And I'm just going to build around it with my pink colors, using a soft gradient to build from light pink against that highlight area down to a darker pink at the edge of the belly where it meets the scales. And remember to overlap and blend as you go. Right off the bat, I have to say, I'm really liking how these pencils are blending. I remember them being kind of hard and rigid, not a very forgiving medium. And hopefully that means that I've actually improved as a colorist and I'm getting better at being a bit more soft-handed. At least I hope that's what it is. Because everybody raves about these pencils and I just never knew what I was missing. Now that this is kind of where I want it to be, I'm going to grab a dry cotton swab. Nothing on it, no baby oil, no nothing. And I'm just going to rub in circular strokes to blend all of this out, which will subtly drag some of that color into the white space that we left as our highlight. That looks pretty good. I'm pretty happy with that. Now, I haven't really planned out my colors whatsoever before starting this page, which is my bad. I really should do that. So I don't really know what colors the rest of the snake should be, but I'm really drawn right away again to these really pretty kind of green blues in this range here. And there's no rules. I'm the one coloring, so I might as well use my favorites. So on the backs of the snake, I'm going to use kind of a similar thought process as I did on the bellies, but instead of leaving my highlight area white, I'm going to use this light blue color here to kind of act as my highlight color where my light would be bouncing off of. And then I'll just build my gradient from there, using several different blues to build up that color variation. Now, one of my favorite things about this page are the scales on the backs of these snakes. I was immediately drawn to those and excited at the prospect of coloring them, which I'll be doing in my darkest blue, this indigo blue, or dark indigo, I'm sorry. Just tracing right over the lines that the artist already gave us. And I like using a super sharpened tip for this. It glides over the lines much easier. You get a much thinner line. And that's actually the one nice thing about having a harder pencil core like these Faber-Castells do, is that your sharpened tip tends to last longer. With the Prismacolors, they're so soft and supple. I feel like a sharpened tip lasts about 10 seconds max, so definitely a benefit with these. I'm also going to be using the same blue to go over the very edges of the snake, kind of, where they meet the bellies and kind of where they meet the background, just to give a little bit of that illusion of some shadow there. Plus, in all the areas where the artist kind of gave us some just very clear areas where it would be shadowed, kind of where their bellies curve around, and also where he kind of gave us those little hatch marks. And once this is where you want it, I'm going to use that dry cotton swab again to just kind of blend it out and soften some of those lines. And now we'll do the same thing on the rest of the snakes. Now, I briefly thought about making each one of these snakes a bit of a different color scheme, but man, that sounded like a huge, huge gamble. Now, I tend to use a very limited color palette anyway, and I know that I should push myself to kind of broaden my palette and experiment, but I just foresaw using all those different colors kind of going horribly wrong. So I'm just going to stick to one color scheme for our snakes. So how do you guys like using Faber-Castell pencils? Do you guys use them more than the Prismacolors? I'm kind of dying to hear. So tell me down below in the comments, do you guys prefer the Prismacolors or kind of these Faber-Castell ones that I'm using today? Now, it was about at this point that I really regretted the decision to outline each and every one of the scales on the backs of all of these snakes. Not really regretted, but this is kind of where my hand was cramping up and I kept having to kind of take a couple of breaks. It was very tedious, took a very, very long time on each, but I think it came out rather nice in the end. Now, for Medusa's skin, I was again faced with the ever crippling decision of what color should it be? Should I go kind of wild and crazy? Should I go safe? And for better or worse, I chose safe. My thought process was that the snakes should be the focal point, and I didn't want anything to detract from that. But in reality, I also just wasn't really sure what other color wouldn't make her skin look just really, really off. So I used a combination of flesh and kind of pink tones to get her skin to have a realistic color palette, but also kind of erring on the side of pink. So there's a bit of an otherworldly quality to it too. Especially as it was kind of fun to play with those little scales or those little bits on her forehead. So a little bit of best of both worlds. Now for skin, faces especially, I like to color with the same rules that I use for contouring when doing my makeup. Now, I focus my highlights in a few choice places, namely the brow bones, underneath the eyes, kind of at like the top of the cheeks in like a triangle shape, down the bridge of the nose, and then right at the Cupid's bow, right above your top lip. And then alternatively, I focus my bronzer, my darker colors in this case, kind of at the top of the forehead, along the hairline, kind of at the cheekbones, the sides of the nose, and also a bit underneath the nose and the lips to give a 3D effect. And then when you're all done with that, the cotton swab is a great blending tool with these Faber-Castells. It blends out really, really nicely. For the lips, I decided just to use a combo of colors that I've already used, as I wanted it to look like her natural lip color and not like lipstick necessarily. Not really sure if I succeeded on this one, but just trying to keep it simple. Now for these little branch, kind of baby's breath looking things here again, I have no clue what to color them. So I grabbed a yellow, thinking that it would complement the rest of my color scheme. It didn't. So I'll just leave that for now. I could just kind of think on it a bit, something to come back to. Now for the background, these little pockets of space behind her, I colored them black with my Faber-Castell pencil. And originally I wanted to use a marker for just kind of better, more consistent coverage. But I was concerned that the marker would end up bleeding through the page to the other side, and I really didn't want that to happen as I may end up coloring the image that's on the other side of this one of these days. So I ended up using my pencil. And as far as the pencil itself goes, I was actually pretty happy with the coverage that the Faber-Castell Black gave me. Now, in these large areas with a dark color, it's really easy to kind of start seeing your pencil lines. But this actually did pretty good. Plus, it was more saturated than I thought that it would be, meaning that it came out a bit darker, a bit blacker than my cheat sheet kind of showed that it would. So I thought it would be more of a dark gray at best, so definitely pleasantly surprised. But other than that, I wasn't entirely happy with the color choice of black itself, but that's on me. I thought it took a little something away from the snakes. Like for some reason, they just weren't looking as dynamic, like they weren't jumping off the page against the black as they were against the white. So it's not horrible, but definitely not my favorite. And of course, I have to bust out my white Posca pen. I love this thing. I don't think I've colored a page without it in the last year. It's literally on every single one of my coloring pages. And here I'm just using it to kind of further highlight some of the snake bellies. Maybe I'll try to use this thing to cover up a bit of that yellow on these branch thingies. This isn't doing it for me either, but I'll figure it out eventually. I'm going to go back in real quick and add a bit of this cream color to her skin. Now, I think the yellow will kind of balance out some of the pink that we've got going on, and I'm just going to give it just kind of an all-over wash here with very, very light pressure in all of the areas of her skin. Then I'll darken up some of these areas on her face just a bit more. Again, I like to go in and tweak. You know, once you put down a pencil, doesn't mean you can't come back to it. Now, I think that these snakes would be creating a lot more shadow than I originally put in, so I'm just going to focus a bit more of these darker colors around her hairline and kind of the sides of her face. All right, back to my Posca pen. I'm going to add little white dots between the scales on the snakes. Now, just in the areas where our highlights would be. And a lot of these areas are still kind of dark, so I'm kind of hoping that this is just going to create a bit of shimmer in those areas. And again, I'm not going over the scales. I'm taking extra care to just kind of go between them so that I don't take away or kind of cover those up, because I think it would look a little bit funny if like a white dot kind of overlapped with the scale. So just going in between. All right, I have another idea for these little branches. I think I might take my metallic gold paint pen and just kind of go over some of these with this color. We're going to just see how that looks. And if you can't tell, I'm just completely winging this and hoping for the best. Now, as we get close to the end here, I'll close with the surprising fact that I really liked using my Faber-Castell pencils. It's only taken me about 3 years, maybe, to get to this point, as that's when I bought these and truly struggled with them at the onset, so much so that I tucked them away. I literally haven't touched them in years. But I think that they did well. They blended really, really nicely. They kept their sharp tips. The colors are truly lovely. I think I will definitely be using these a lot more often. So what do you guys think? Do you think I should use them more often? Is that something that you guys would want to see? Oh, and don't forget to tell me down below if you guys use Faber-Castell in your coloring. Thank you guys so much for watching today. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, hit that like button. It really helps folks find my channel, helps my channel to grow. Subscribe if you're new, and if you're looking for even more coloring tutorials, you'll find tons on my channel by looking through the back catalog. Hope you all enjoy your week, and I'll see you next time. Happy coloring!